In December 2020, Christchurch police officers informed me that the New Zealand Foreign Affairs Minister did not recognise us. So what exactly does Nanaia not recognise? Does Nanaia recognise herself on Al Jazeera saying, "I support greater autonomy"?
I support greater autonomy.
I support greater autonomy and
Did I just hear the New Zealand Foreign Affairs Minister Nanaia Mahuta say, "I support greater autonomy"?
And we're not in a position to tell countries what to do, but we are in a position to advocate what we believe underpins an open democracy that builds bridges between Indigenous peoples and the government within their country. And we
that builds bridges between Indigenous peoples and the government.
Builds bridges for Indigenous peoples? Is Nanaia the troll that stands at the bridge so that the native and Indigenous peoples can't travel across? Or are we expected to pay a fee? I'm the Foreign Affairs Minister, and I don't recognise you. And I don't recognise you. I don't recognise you either. I don't recognise you. I don't recognise you. So you can't travel across the bridge. And I've called the cops. But Nanaia, don't you recognise that you have broken many international covenants and laws? Policing Act 2008-30, Command and Control, Number 4. No police employee may, when exercising any power or carrying out any function or duty, act under the direction, command or control of a Minister of the Crown. Maybe Nanaia doesn't recognise the word kaitiaki, since she voted to sell the seabed and foreshore when she was the chair of Māori Affairs. This was considered to be, by the United Nations, a crime against Indigenous and Native peoples of Te Moana Nui Akiwa and the environment. Maybe Nanaia doesn't recognise the 1834 flag featured on our card. The 1834 flag was gifted by royal decree, and the diplomatic immunity offered by the flag to the receiving state members in other territories was in quid pro quo and the normal method of diplomacy. Maybe Nanaia doesn't recognise the normal methods of diplomacy. Maybe Nanaia doesn't recognise my hapu, Ngāi Te Rangi Koianaki, and my tupuna, Te Hapuku, from Ngāi Te Rangi Koianaki hapu, Kahurānaki marae in Te Hauki, who autographed the He Whakaputanga in 1839 on behalf of Wakamingia o ngā hapu ki Ngāti Kahanunu and Wakamingia o ngā hapu ki Ngāi Tahu. Maybe Nanaia doesn't recognise that the 1834 flag is the correct flag of our nation, or that the Union Jack flag has no trading status. Maybe Nanaia doesn't recognise the Wakamingia o ngā hapu. Wakamingia o ngā hapu is recognised by the British monarch, French monarch and Hawaiian monarchs. Maybe Nanaia doesn't recognise that each Wakamingia o ngā hapu has a tino rangatira representative, and each hapu territory has its own jurisdiction and autonomous native authority. Wakamingia o ngā hapu is recognised by the United Nations as the autonomous native authority by royal decree and by treaty. As a Wakamingia representative employed on my diplomatic mission for the preservation of my heritage, I am entitled to diplomatic privileges by order of the United Nations 1959. This order is enshrined within New Zealand legislation. And Foreign Affairs Minister Nanaia cannot alter this. Maybe Nanaia doesn't recognise the Te Moananui embassy, even though her house in Ngaruahia is literally 1 block away. Maybe Nanaia doesn't recognise the Te Moananui embassy building and grounds were gifted by Princess Tapuia. Maybe Nanaia doesn't recognise Princess Tapuia. Maybe Nanaia doesn't recognise what tikanga means. Maybe Nanaia doesn't recognise the 1835 he whakaputanga. Or maybe Nanaia doesn't recognise Te Wherewhero who autographed he whakaputanga in 1839 with Te Hapuku. Maybe Nanaia doesn't recognise Te Moananui jurisdiction. Te Moananui jurisdiction has been recognised throughout history by many civilizations, such as Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan in 1520. Te Moananui jurisdiction is also recognised by the current New Zealand Chief Justice, Helen Winkleman. The native autonomous authorities collectively agree that Nanaia should be disqualified from any representative role for her crimes against Indigenous and Native peoples, the whales and dolphins, and creatures of Te Moananui.
So should New Zealand's environmental policies include a ban on mining iron sand off the North Island's Taranaki coast? So Maori maintain customary claims, as you know, to the foreshore and have opposed the plan for years. How do you reconcile the rights of your people when you're in a role that requires you to defend the government of New Zealand? So it was back in 2004 when you did create a bit of controversy when you eventually voted for the New Zealand Foreshore and Seabed Act. I mean, that's something that the UN criticized. They released a report on that law stating that the law contained discriminatory aspects against the Maori. You were the chairperson of Maori Affairs at the time. Do you regret that vote?
No, I don't.
Do you regret that vote? No, I don't. That comment was made when the bill was introduced into Parliament. Do you regret that vote? No, I don't. That comment was made when the bill was introduced into Parliament.
Maybe Nanaia has amnesia. Symptoms of amnesia. The primary symptom of amnesia is memory loss or the inability to form new memories. If you have amnesia, you will have difficulty recalling facts, events, places, or specific details. The details can range from what you ate this morning to the name of the current president. You will still retain your motor skills, such as your ability to walk, as well as fluency in any languages you speak. As kaitiaki, we have a duty to take care of Nanaia in case she actually has a physical illness affecting her ability to make sensible decisions, or in case Nanaia is a victim of mind control, witchcraft, or in case Nanaia has been influenced by impressionable, authoritative personalities. Wakamingia o ngā hapu was the governing body that autographed 1835 He Whakaputanga and the 1840 Te Tii o Waitangi. Any corporate entity coming under the New Zealand government is an unlawful entity because they have no constitution. The Indigenous peoples actually have a constitution, a protectorate known as the 1835 He Whakaputanga. The Wakamingia o ngā hapu is the authoritative body and only tēnā rangatira can represent the Wakamingia. Tōhunga advised the tino rangatira. Tōhunga advised the tino rangatira and the tōhunga says no kupapa allowed.